over a year now in the media service line. To everybody here today, I take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Kunal Mehta. He's the Global Director, Marketing and Communication at DSM Nutritional Products. Kunal puts back 18 years of diverse experience in roles involving strategic brand management, campaign development, global innovations, retail operations, and P&L responsibilities across categories, brands, and not to mention across countries. He's also worked with top FMCG brands like Nestle and Britannia as well. Just to add some flavor to the session, like Mega mentioned, he's a celeb there on LinkedIn. He puts up some great insights and perspectives from the marketing world, and the fruits of it, he's got over 10,000 followers who constantly engage with his content on the platform. So this particular intimate session is indeed a blessing, and for me, it's like interviewing a celebrity in itself. So thank you again. So before I jump into the serious stuff, Kunal, I just noticed that you love to write, travel, and call yourself a collector of experiences. I, for one, had a tickle when I read the phrase collector of experiences. So would you mind sharing some of your unique experiences in the recent past?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for such kind and generous words. I think you've been a bit, too kind on this. But thank you very much for having me. And I know that it's evening time in India, so I appreciate all the people who are already connected. I understand that you could have been anywhere else. You could have been working on your way back home with your family. So Aditya, let's try and make this really worth their time. That would be my attempt. Coming back to your question, I think that's true. I like to call myself collective experiences, and I think all of us do collect experiences. But over the years, and since the time I moved to Switzerland, which has been a few years, I've had the opportunity to sort of collect different experiences. Let me start by something which I really love, which is traveling. And being here, the countries of Europe are so easily accessible. So every year I try and make it a point to at least go and visit and see 2 to 3 new countries or cities within Europe. It's a great way to understand the culture, the history, and go beyond what you know. So I think that's one of those examples. One other example is again being here. I could have tried things that I didn't when I was in India. So tried my hands at skiing and sledding both. Failed miserably at both. Realized it's a tough thing if you don't learn early enough. But again, got a chance to try that. And I think one of the biggest experiences, more personal, is what happened in my life 2 years back. So I became a father for the first time. So I'm now a father to a 20-month-old baby. So that's another sort of great
That's,
experience. So just to
it's
give you a flavor
beautiful.
of different experiences. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, nice, nice. So at skiing, did you break a bone or did you break a bone?
Sorry?
At skiing, when you tried skiing, did you break a bone or did you break a bone? And just
Thankfully not break my bone, but yes, it's tough.
nice. Okay. So coming to my first question, Kunal, from
Yeah.
spending your initial years in India to moving on a global level, I'm sure you've had an incredible journey. So how was your perspective and approach evolved from a country specific to taking a role on a global capacity?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question, and and probably this is more in hindsight that I can reflect on it and talk about it. The way I see it is that moving to a global role, there were three different dimensions in which I had to kind of think and make a change. And let me talk about all three. First is as an Indian, when you move to a foreign country and you start working there for the first time. Second is as a manager, if you get a team that's international, how do you start approaching things? And then the third is as a leader, now when you're looking in a global role, how do you start looking at things? Let's start with the first one, which is the first experience as an Indian when you're moving out. How do you change your approach? I think one of the first realization was that the hierarchical setup that we have in companies in India, even if they are MNCs, is much different than companies globally. I think there's a lot of respect for seniority, even in global companies, but the freedom to challenge, the freedom to give feedback, the freedom to give your point of view is much more easier here than what I saw in any of the Indian companies that I worked in. That's one thing that I kind of noticed. The other thing is that there is this inherent, and maybe it's not true everywhere, but I felt that when I was with Nestle, there's this inherent embedded thing in our minds that people working in global roles are foreigners who are more superior. And I can tell you that when we would have calls from the SBU, which is called as a strategic business unit, that's where the headquarters of Nestle would be. When we would have calls from them or visits from them, we would be very nervous. And of course, you need to prepare for that. No two ways about it. But when I moved here, I was the SBU. So now suddenly to sit with them, to work with them, to eat with them, what is important is to not get overwhelmed by it, to realize that, to realize and have the confidence in your own ability, but also to realize that all those people there are probably there because of their experience, not because of their nationality. So that change in how do you see someone sitting next to you now who you were nervous to speak to a few months back, that's a big change. And I say that because I noticed few other Indian colleagues who were fantastic when they were in the Indian market, and when they moved here, they sort of went in their shell. And we've had those conversations, so I know when I'm saying this that this is an important thing. So that's when you move from India to a global country. The second is the manager. So as a manager of a team, and let me take my own example. I have a team of people from 8 nationalities operating in 3 different countries. So it becomes important that how do I understand their cultural nuances, their cultural exposure, and yet provide feedback to them in a way that they understand, but also which helps them grow and helps the company grow. So that's something, again, it comes with experience. You have to try and test and try, but this is again something which changes. And there sometimes language can be a barrier because I can tell you when I had team members in India, I could just walk over, have a cup of tea, have some nice conversation in Hindi, and say things that you can't do when you're just having this conversation in English. So that's another thing that changed. And then as a leader for a global company, I think you have to change your lens. You cannot have a lens of one country anymore. So any business decision that you're making, where to launch the product or where to put the monies or where the campaign should go out first, the decision based on business and not based on my own personal bias or my own geographical preference. So I think this is how I see the shift from an Indian role to a global role. Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Actually gives a full change in perspective. As a follow-up question, I would like to also like to ask, I've observed that you've spent a substantial amount of time on your career working with brands in the FMCG and retail category. And these
Mhm.
categories are big in all commercial ways, especially on a global level, right? So how
Mhm.
do cultural and regional differences weigh in when you have to, address so many different markets?
Yeah, I think this is where, you know, how do I say that? When you have to unlock the different dimensions of marketing, it changes when you're doing this at a global level for a global brand versus just doing it in one market. I think everything that we do, we have to consider all those cultural realities. So even if I'm launching a brand now, I need to think about, can that brand be protected and trademarked in every country that it's getting rolled out? What about the name of the brand? Will the brand name stand on its own in every market? Hopefully it doesn't have any wrong connotation in any market, so that becomes important. When you're doing a campaign, is the campaign inclusive enough and relevant enough for all the countries? Does it take care of all the softer nuances? So I think that's another aspect you kind of have to think in mind. When you're doing a flavor rollout, which market do you select first? And then how do you allocate the sales percentage? I think that's another sort of thing that you have to kind of think about. And I think, in a way, whatever you do, you have to, in a global role, you have to be culturally more informed, contextually appropriate, and socially in accordance with the norms of the society of every country that you operate in. So I think this would be my sort of conclusion, that how do you become culturally more informed, contextually more appropriate, and socially in accordance with those norms? And it's not an easy thing. You have to constantly keep checking with every country every time you're rolling out something. But I think that's the fun of this challenging role, I would say.
So all those are the 3 points that you mentioned. I'm sure it impacts all your advertising strategies and even
Yes.
the TVCs. You call it. So moving our lens to your current organization, DSM Nutritional Products.
Mhm.
Sustainability, while the biggest of the brands are still in their nascent stage, in adapting the whole concept. But it appears to me that DSM has made its mission to drive sustainability at a global scale. It's as if it's in the brand's DNA. So could you throw some light how the brand is bringing in the change and trying to make the world a better place?
Yeah, I joined DSM 4 years back. And when I was deciding to make this move from Nestle to DSM, I think one of the things that attracted me to the organization was a very clear, strong purpose, but also sustainability in the DNA, as you mentioned. And that's something we mention within the organization as well. DSM actually started talking about sustainability almost 15 years back or so, when sustainability still no one understood. Companies were not
Wow.
talking about it. Customers and
Okay.
consumers didn't have any clue about it. So they started the journey way back. And I remember one of the former CEOs, chairmen of DSM used to say that doing good and doing well can go hand in hand. It is not one versus the other. And what that means is that you can drive your business, you can be profitable, but you can also do good for the planet, for the people. And that has been the foundation for DSM for so many years. This is an organization that's more than 120 years old. It's a Dutch company, and it actually started as a state mining company. And today it is a nutrition, health, and bioscience company. So it's done a complete 360-degree flip simply because as the organization started growing and as the philosophy and the purpose started changing, the organization made a pivot. And today it's so much so that if a business doesn't make sense in terms of the lens of the purpose and sustainability, DSM doesn't shy away from selling or moving away from that business. So that's how strong sustainability is. Sustainability is something that the co-CEOs of our company, they make public commitments regularly, but also at any point in time you can visit our website, you can check our annual report, and all those sustainability metrics can be seen. So it's also transparent that way, is that whether you're an investor, a customer, someone who's interested in joining DSM, you can get to know all about it. And I think my last part on this is that sustainability is now seen as a strategic business driver for us, especially in the business unit that I'm part of. And no innovation can actually come to the market if it doesn't deliver on those sustainability drivers or platforms that we've chosen, which are linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So it's not something we come on our own, it's linked to that. But that's how important sustainability is. It's part of the culture, it's part of the ethos. So it's not something that we do just because CSR makes it look nice. So it's a very different approach to sustainability, at least in DSM.
That's actually bringing a change to the world. So that's really nice. On to my next question. By now, we've all figured that you have excelled in both B2B and B2C space and working with some of the biggest brands as well. So I'm very keen to understand how your dynamics, approach, and comfort changed when you took the leap from a hardcore FMCG brand to a B2B brand.
Yeah, you're putting me up and opening my vulnerabilities, but I must, since it's a fireside chat, I'm going to say it. I must confess, it was not easy to make the change from B2C to B2B. Initially, when I joined DSM, there were a few months that I was kind of questioning myself, did I make the right move or not? It was, this is a company that is built on science and technology, and it's filled with scientists and PhDs and all such kind of people. And there were times and there were moments when I was having, imposter syndrome, that am I in the right place or not? And then probably for me, the aha moment happened when I kind of realized that there is a reason why I've been hired, because of the marketing expertise that I hopefully bring in from the B2C world. And also the realization that while these kind of companies are very strong on technology, on science, marketing is something that they've never, it's not that important. It's the strength of the product and the innovation that drives business, but you cannot live with that in today's times. Once I realized that, I changed my approach. I stopped comparing myself or competing myself against those technical people, those scientists. And that's when I was able to really see some success and gain respect and trust of the peers and the colleagues. And that was when I was actually able to show impact. So I think it, and it's personally, it was great because it gave me a moment of realization that you don't always have to feel comfortable, first of all, but also the fundamentals of marketing still remain the same. The application changes, but the fundamentals of marketing, what I had done over the years in Nestle or Britannia, I could bring it to DSM as well. So this is an interesting question, but yeah, it was not an easy one to make the transition.
That's interesting to hear a story. So again, Nestle, I've been waiting to ask this question. So Nestle, it's something that rings the bell for everyone present here, and some might even have a nostalgic moment too. So you've had the opportunity to work on this brand, and I can particularly recall this 4x4 Munch ad starring Virat Kohli, and the TV. The ad surely made some noise in the market. So any disruptive measures that you took when you were at Nestle back then to make this campaign a success?
Yeah, this was a really nice time where, back then. So when we before we even brought Virat Kohli on board, I must say that we did a lot of work with the agency on the campaign idea itself. And as part of the idea, and one of the suggestions that came up was to bring Virat Kohli on board on this campaign. And we also tried to evaluate Virat's personality in comparison to the personality of the brand. And only when we saw that it's in sync, we decided to have him on board. And I think we took a very different approach for this campaign. So we didn't use Virat Kohli as Virat. We actually created an alter ego or a different character called Balakrishnan Bali, who just looks like Virat, but is completely different than Virat in terms of his personality. He is a person who's, always lived his life in Chennai, is very scared of things, has a very boring life. And actually, it's the product Munch that makes life exciting for him, because we wanted to make the product the hero. So that was the approach that we took. And we had a lot of fun at it because, personally, for me, we tried many new things in marketing. So this character, Balakrishnan Bali, actually we created a Twitter profile for him. We created a Facebook profile
Oh,
for
wow.
him. We kind of listed down his style, his tone of voice. This guy started tweeting, started putting posts, started commenting on social media. So this character was, building his own identity. And when we rolled out the campaign, actually, we even had Virat tweet about this, that he is uh, getting bothered with a lot of questions because of this Wali. So there was this whole, moment that we tried to create, that this is a separate character and not Virat. And we actually ran that for quite some time. And then since you mentioned Munch 4x4, one of the variants of Munch, after a few months of having Wali build his own character, his own personality, and all of that, we then introduced Virat in a separate film where actually Wali is in an elevator and he happens to be, in the elevator where Virat enters. So that's actually a double role, and it's a kind of fun
Oh,
moment which we tried to create. So yeah, it was very different for me as well in terms of doing the marketing here of how do you build a character from a celebrity and not show the celebrity in the way the celebrity is. So yeah, it's fun
it
times.
indeed, yes, it did sounded fun. Did it take a lot of convincing for Virat to play that character, almost become an alter ego?
He is brilliant. He he
Okay.
he is brilliant on the sets. He's a very good actor. He loved the script. He loved to go out of his, because every other brand was just making him do the same things, look like a cool dude and play some cricketing shots. He loved it. He was able to enact it really well. And no, he enjoyed it very much.
So next, on to the next favorite chocolate, like from managing an Indian brand like Munch in India to a global brand like Kit Kat in India and then in Switzerland. How was the transition? That's part one. And second part, the whole product design of Kit Kat talks about breaking the chocolate and sharing it, right? And also recollect the packaging mentioning no break for an educational initiative during my younger days. So can you share experience on the initiative and experience on working on the brand?
Yeah, I think they're both chocolate wafer brands from Nestle, but they are two different worlds, Munch and Kit Kat. And it's a different experience working on a brand like Kit Kat versus working on Munch. I think one of the first realization was that here is a global brand that is available in more than 80 countries, Kit Kat. And so how do you first, when you're in the Indian market, how do you help to grow that brand from one market as part of all the other markets? That's the first thing that you realize. But I think for me, the bigger realization happened when I moved to the global role for KitKat, because that showed me two things. One is that how do you build a global brand with such consistency across so many markets? And that also meant, going back to your first question, on when you move to a global role. So when you're doing global innovations, you're speaking to brand managers, marketing managers from every market, every country. How do you understand their challenge, their cultural nuances, and yet ensure that the brand is consistent in in all the markets? And the reason I say that is that there's this line, have a break, have a Kit Kat. Kit Kat's tagline. This line has been there since 1957, almost 65 years in all the markets. And brand managers and marketing managers can come and go, but you're not allowed to touch that line. You cannot tamper with that tagline. Similarly, you cannot play around with the Kit Kat colors, the logo. So it just showed me the power of a brand sometimes is so much bigger than the power of people. And we sometimes used to joke that, you are just taking this brand, helping it grow, and then as a legacy, passing it on without messing with it, without diluting its strong brand properties. That was very different versus Munch, where you could have done anything. You can change the tagline, you can play around with it because it's a local brand. So very, very different way of looking at it, at a brand. Yeah.
Um, and onto another stint that you had in India, we have quite a few folks from Mumbaikars, and I'm sure they're aware of the Mumbai Dabbawalas. And I had read about the connection that you stuck with them during a stint with Britannia. So would love to hear the story from you.
Oh, by the way, I realized, but I didn't answer your second question to that break thing. So maybe if you allow me, I can come back to that
Yes,
first. Yeah,
yes,
because
yes.
that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah,
interesting one. So, and that's interesting because with what I just said, you cannot mess with the brand. You cannot, you cannot
yeah.
change the tagline. And here we had initiated a concept called no break. So why did we do that? So Nestle India wanted to do a partnership as part of the CSR initiative with the Nanni Kali Girl Foundation, the girl education thing to raise awareness for girl education. And Nestle India wanted to use three of its biggest brands, Maggi, Nescafe, and KitKat, to take this forward. And the idea was to really use the real estate of the packaging of these brands to communicate about this partnership, this association, but also then get some sales from these packs and donate it to the foundation. That was the big concept. And the whole idea was that how do we change the front of the pack communication to talk about this? So for example, on Maggie, it says 2 minutes for noodles or something like that. And that got changed to 2 minutes for education. Nescafe packs say it all starts with Nescafe. That line got changed to it all starts with education. So again, linking it to education. For KitKat, it was changing its positioning completely because here we say have a break, have a KitKat. And we were suddenly saying no break, no break. The whole line was no break from education. So you can imagine that it was so much easier for the other two brands to convince the headquarters. And I had a tough time because you're messing with the tagline, which has never been touched, and you're asking for this. But thankfully, they saw the bigger picture. They understood why we're doing it. They actually felt that this will help to make the brand stronger, because this initiative was being rolled out, if I remember, on almost 100 million packs between the three brands. So the reach was
Wow, that's
massive. And if KitKat would not have participated, the scale would have been relatively smaller. So thankfully, I got the approvals. But that was the reason, and that was the only time that the break became no break. But again, a very, very different, marketing approach that we took at that time. So thanks for that question. Sorry, I now forgot your last question. Can
no
you
problem.
repeat that?
Yes, yes. But before I go to the next question, I cannot imagine the level of approvals you had to get to change the
Yeah.
packaging. I'm not gonna ask that how many, but okay, on to the next question. So yeah, I said a lot of Mumbaikars on the call today, and I read about the connection that you stuck with the Mumbai Dabbawalas when you were at Britannia. But I would
Mhm.
like to hear the story from your end.
Yeah. So when I was with Britannia, I was actually taking care of Good Day as a brand. It is one of the biggest brands of not only Britannia, but one of the biggest brands after Parle-G within the biscuit world. And Good Day is classified as a cookies segment. So after managing Good Day for a few years, I was told to launch a new brand called Britannia Cookies at a lower price point, at a ₹5 price point. And the objective was to penetrate the cookie market because the cookie market is not as big as the glucose market. So that was the objective. But as you can imagine, if it's a smaller brand, new brand, you don't have the kind of budgets that a Good Day has. So you have to change the approach of how you do marketing. Now, Britannia Cookies was built on this proposition or this tagline, "Tan ko lage man ko chue," or in English, "Nourishes your body, nurtures your soul." In fact, this was a tagline that was cracked by Prasoon Joshi right in front of me in his McCann office in Mumbai when we were discussing how do we do the
Wow.
launch. So that was amazing to see how he thinks and how he comes up with it. But the whole idea and the insight was that sometimes people are not there to provide the food, to provide the nourishment for your loved ones. But there is, foods like this, they help in providing that love and that nourishment. So that was really the insight. And then we thought that, okay, if that's the insight and if our budgets are limited, what are the touch points that we can look at to communicate about this proposition? And if you think about it, since you said there are people from Mumbai on this call, people who receive dabbas every day, they're not only getting food, they're also getting love from their loved ones, from their family members every afternoon. So we said that's a great touch point if we can sample our product through them. And at least at that point in time, no other brand had done this. This was something new. Even for the Dabbawalas, it was not something they were used to. So we used our agency. We got them to agree to it. We had to design special 2 biscuit pack for the sampling purpose. But as a result, on a particular day, whatever the numbers are, 2 lakh, 3 lakh dabbas, along with every dabba on top of that, there was this little pack of Britannia cookies and a little pamphlet telling people about the product and what it stands for. And of course, there was also some pre-work that we had done with the sales team, because what was important was to ensure that all the retail outlets in Mumbai have the stocks, because the last thing I wanted is that
Yeah.
once people know about it and then they go to the store and they don't even get the product in the market. So that was the full work to be done. But yeah, this brings some nice fond memories. So thanks.
That was really smart and very frugal. So cheers to that. Um, and I think this question's gonna raise some yours, considering we're all from the media agency side. So you've always been quite actively involved in procurement side of the business. And for folks like us who spend endless nights on building pitch decks, it would be really helpful to understand what are the critical areas that qualify a brand's judgment when it comes to procuring media agencies, creative agencies, or CXMs.
Yeah.
The whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have been involved in a few pitches and bringing a few agencies on board, and I can only speak for myself or how I evaluate an agency. I don't say that that's true for all the brands, so take it only in that. But every time I try and evaluate an agency, I think there are 2 or 3 things that I look at. One is the strategic approach of the agency, and to me that gives me a perspective that the agency has the ability to not only understand the brief but also the business. That's important. If you want to work with us as business partners, you need to understand the business as well. And I think the way I judge it, especially for new agencies, is of course to look at their portfolio of work, the kind of brands and companies that they're working with, but also the proposal that they come with. So I think those are a few ways to kind of look at the strategic approach. I think the second thing is how passionate they are. And I think every agency will say we are passionate. It's one thing to say it, one thing to show it. And again, they're looking at their work, their case studies, their awards, even the quality and content of their website. To me, that's also a good indication that if they can't even put passion in making their own website good enough as an agency, it's a sort of a red flag. So I think the passion to work is extremely important. And then the third thing, and this is a bit difficult to judge in pitch rounds, but you try and figure that out, is a challenging mindset. And I say this being on the other side very consciously, because you can get an agency that will agree on everything that you want, but I don't want to work with that agency. I want an agency that challenges us in our thinking, in our beliefs, on the status quo. Only then we can help grow the brand. So I think, again, in terms of when they get the brief, what is the kind of question that they're coming back with? When they come with a proposal, are they just coming with some basic, very usual seen before kind of proposal? And that's not wrong, but also how much are they pushing the needle? So I think the challenging mindset, because to me that shows that if we bring them on board, they will constantly challenge us and challenge us in the right way so that we can consider better for the brand. So I think these would be my things of what I look at. So Other things are sort of part and parcel of that, but these three are very, very important for me.
Point well taken. I'm happy the call's recording so that we don't miss any of the points. And Mega, I request you at least get one feedback from on the our website, so make sure there are no loopholes. All right. Coming to the digital marketing, I mean, the digital adoption in India is obviously big, but when it comes to on a global scale, no brand can grow if they do not have digital marketing in their arsenal, right? And how do you approach digital marketing for all the brands that you've worked on?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, an important one, because often I hear nowadays the digital marketing is a bit different than marketing or different than the usual marketing. And I don't really see it like that. Digital marketing is very important, absolutely. But the fundamentals of marketing are applicable even on digital marketing. So you have to, and you have all experts in this call. So when I say this, you'll understand it. But things like understanding your customer, where are they consuming the media? So even in digital marketing, what are the channels? What are the platforms where they're going? What is your SEO strategy? What is our content going to look like? Or, how regularly are we going to do content audits? What's our brand tone of voice? What's the KPI that we want to go after? I think, and these are things I can remove the digital part of it, and maybe the SEO may not hold valid, but everything else pretty much holds valid for non-digital marketing as well. So I think this is the way I always approach it. What are the basic fundamentals of marketing? Let's apply that to the digital marketing side as well. And therefore, for me, the website is just one more touch point. And therefore, just like how you have to ensure that the TVC is good, the print ad is good. Similarly, the website has to be good. Similarly, the social media has to be good. So I think that's the way it is. There is a bit of a difference between the B2B and the B2C side of digital marketing, at least just in terms of the user base or the consumer profile is a bit different. When I would do digital marketing for, let's say, a KitKat, the person I'm advertising to is potentially the consumer. Whereas in B2B, the chain is so big, that's not the consumer, it's a customer. And within a customer, they have so many different personas. The buying cycle is longer. So that's the only difference in approach that we take. And what that means is, let's take Instagram as a great example. When I was in India, actually, KitKat was the first brand to advertise on Instagram. So that
Wow.
was
Okay.
on FMCG side. Now on DSM, at least on my business, we have still not gone on Instagram at a global level because the audience that we cater to are not on Instagram. So I could have said, oh, I've done Instagram there, let me do Instagram here. No, it's again, that's the only thing. The fundamentals of marketing, making the choices based on where your customer is. That would be my approach to digital marketing.
Makes complete sense, Kunal. Thank you so much. And before I announce the open house, Mega did mention that you love to write. Do you mind sharing a piece of your art with us?
I think I'm just looking at the time and I would just leave it, and I don't want to share anything, but I would just leave it at, and you mentioned it. I do write. I write on professional and marketing things on LinkedIn. But then, like I said, I like to travel. So I also write. I go to a place, I take a picture, and then I try and write some short fictional stories linked to that, which is there
Huh?
on on Instagram and Facebook. But that's for another day. Let's just jump to the questions, because hopefully there
I'm
is
sure.
some nice Q&A that we can look into. So I
Awesome.
want to just jump into that.
Definitely. So here we are, people on the call. Any questions? Go for it.
Just a quick one. How do you see the difference in talent from India versus other markets that you've operated at? Do you see the ways of working much different than what it happens here at an India level versus what happens there at APAC or even at a global level? Something that we should take away and something that they should learn from us.
So, yeah, how do I answer that? I don't want to say anything wrong on either side. Yeah. Oh, let's start with the good, and then I'll try and cover. Yeah, the good is that, of course, as Indians, we bring a lot of intelligence, smartness, ways of thinking, and sometimes, often, we say it in a joking way, in a bad way, the word jugaad. But I think if you don't do jugaad, but the mindset of being able to solve a problem and find a solution, I see that much stronger in Indians than a lot of other countries. That's because, the way we're grown up, the way we see, and there's population, there's competition, all those reasons make us work harder, but also try and find solutions in a much better way. That is definitely a advantage that I see when it comes to the Indian. The disadvantage, or the ways of working which is different, is that there is a bit of uh, time management. I think that's one thing, obviously, that we are not as punctual on deliverables and deadlines. We It's a bit of, yeah, it'll happen. Even when the deadline is near, I've often seen that when I interacted with the Indians, it's like ho jayega, abhi time hai. Whereas the Western side, it's very, it's very ritualistic. So they have the process, they have everything, when it's going to happen, and that's when it happens. So that's a bit of it can give you, stress. Now I'm an Indian, so I know how it works. But if you're not, I see people stressing out because they don't see that visibility. So I think but otherwise, talent, I think this is, at least when I'm trying to find talent, I'm just looking at them based on experience, skills, and what they bring. And this is not something that I'd really pay attention to that much.
Thank you.
I think Pooja has a question. Pooja, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Adi. Hi, Kunal. This has been a lovely session.
Thank
Very
you.
and thank you so much for joining us today. I had a quick question. In the beginning of the session, you mentioned that the main difference between working in an Indian company versus working in a global organization has been your managers being much more approachable and an open culture overall. So,
Mhm.
for a person like me who would want to grow in an organization that I'm working currently, and
Mhm.
when there will be a time when people would be working under me, or I would be managing a few people, what
Right.
is the best way of being approachable according to you? Like, what is it that works well for you?
Personally, I think I have no qualms in being vulnerable in front of my team. And I think you saw a bit of that even today. I don't know any one of you. And when Aditya asked me this question about the transition from B2B to B2C, or the other way around, I didn't think twice that, oh, because I'm today on the Fireside chat, how can I say that I had few moments of doubt? And I think this is something I follow with my team as well. I have never thought twice. If there's something that I don't know or something where I have doubts, I openly say it. And my experience and observation is that just one opens the trust. They also realize that I may not have all the answers, but then it gives them the strength and the ease that they can be open and they can share things with me, with the others, amongst each other, because here is their manager who's being so open to them and vulnerable. So this would be my one, at least this has worked for me always. So if that helps you, maybe you want to take that.
Got it.
Yes, the boss is always right is not always
No.
applicable everywhere. I mean, it's always good to be vulnerable. Thank you, Kunal.
Message received, Pooja.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kunal, just to
So,
give you context, Pooja reports into Kunal.
Aditya, so she reports into me, and boss is not
Adi,
always there. So
Adi,
very,
Adi.
very loud and clear. Got it. Moving on. So Vitesh has a question. Please go for it, Vitesh.
Yeah, hey Kunal, great
Hey,
interaction. Thanks so much for making it.
thank you.
Quick question. What, in your opinion, do you think? I mean, you spoke a lot about sustainability, right, at the
Mhm,
start of the chat.
mhm.
What do you think India as a nation, right, needs to do to increase the sustainability consciousness in generally within our country?
Nice. Good question to think of. Uh, I think India has been sustainable on many fronts without India even realizing it. You know, the kabadi wala or the raddi wala, whatever you call it in different parts of India, what is that? People would get rid of their newspapers, their plastic and whatever, because they in a way they could make some money and get rid of the trash according to them. But it was a way of India being sustainable. I don't think we see it like that. I don't think we ever talk like that. And I think there are many other, if you go back into our ways of working, into the, kullar wali chai. What is that? That's another great example of sustainability. My thinking would be that uh, I don't know whether companies need to do it, government needs to do it. But if we were to just first think of all the practices that we have in the country and kind of list it down and say that these are sustainable practices that India is proud of. This is very strongly Indian. It comes from the Indian ethos, Indian tradition, and then start talking about it first within the country and then outside. The other day I was reading, I don't know which country suddenly is, and it's all over social media that they are introducing banana leaves for meals. Come on, we've been doing that for years in India. And that was, oh yes, banana leaves were being introduced for fruit packaging in supermarkets in one of the countries in Europe. And social media was going crazy. This is such a great idea. Why no one thought of it? I'm like, Indians thought of it thousands of years ago. So again, these are the things I think India is already very sharply, strongly sustainable in certain things. So first is to put them together and start talking about it in that way. The second is, of course, there is also elements where India is not sustainable, and there is where I think again the government and companies need to play a big role. I mean, India, just the location geographically, it gets so much sun, but solar energy, I still hear it gets talked about. It doesn't get used that much, especially in personal households. If you speak to people, they'll say it's expensive, I don't want to do it, I'm not sure. That's a simple way of how you can first as an individual show that you're sustainable, but also the government can play a role. So I think those would be my ways of looking at what's the good, but then also finding new ways. I hope it answers your question.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need the right incentives. That's the only problem.
Yeah. Just since you talk of incentive, one example comes to mind that Maggie, at least in Himachal Pradesh and surrounding areas, started collecting all the Maggie packs that were discarded in dustbins and many other places. They joined hands with the Uttarakhand or Himachal government, and the Maggie packs were actually used as part of the road construction material. So, and that's a great incentive. Now, imagine if you could incentivize the consumer to come and bring those packs and you give something in return, and you join hands with the government to use it in things like this. It's a win-win for everyone. So you're right, incentivizing people is the way forward for sure.
Sai Pratik has a question.
Hi, Kunal.
Hi.
Some absolutely great insights given out today. Thank you so much for that.
Thank
And
you.
my question is in relating to you being associated with the Arvind store, uh, dating long back. So
Yeah.
then, when the time was like the Indian mindset was not very much inclined towards branded clothing and things like that. And the Arvind store being a hub of brands like that and having a slightly expensive collection, how did you help Arvind store to penetrate deeper into the Indian market and be a successful story for Arvind store?
So first of all, I'll be honest that I was not doing marketing in Arvind. I was doing sales. So I don't think that I was really helping in category penetration. I would believe that's more of the marketing job. But to your question on Indians being less conscious or from a brand point of view, I think Arvind Brands had a whole roster of brands. I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if the brand still exists, but they also had brands like Flying Machine and Rough and Tough, which was selling jeans at 300 rupees. And then they went all the way to Tommy Hilfiger, Gant, and even more. So Arvind Brands was very smart because they were trying to cater to different price points, different profiles of consumers, and through that they were trying to penetrate the market. So that was the change that was happening. What I realized and what I saw was that there was um, the trend would start from either people who've been out of India, so they know those brands. They would be the trendsetters. And then there would be their cousins who would look at them in an aspirational way, because those guys, according to them, understood fashion. So those guys, when they would come back from US or any other market, they would talk about brands like Wrangler, Lee, Tommy Hilfiger, and those would be the people who we would target, along with, of course, so back then, influencer marketing was not influencer marketing, but we were working a lot with fashion models. So we would use the fashion models as well as this aspirational crowd of people to kind of set the trend for these brands. So we would almost, ask them, incentivize them to wear the brands from Arvind. We would gift it to them, and because these guys were seen as aspirational, that would lead to a shift for people who would say that, okay, I don't mind having 4 jeans of Flying Machine, but I want to save money and buy one of Lee. So that was the shift that we were kind of noticing, and that also helped us to, now coming to the sales role, to kind of plan different bundling offers. So can we say that, buy 2 jeans, get the third free, and all these, which now look very basic, but these were based on those insights that how do we grow the category? How do we increase penetration? Can we do bundling of 2 shirts with the jeans? Because people are still very comfortable buying shirts, but jeans is something they are not used to. So all those things, but this is, 2 lifetimes ago. I have to go back into my memory bank to give you the answer.
No, no, but the information that came out from you was absolutely helpful, Kunal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
covering
the question.
and answering the question. Thank you.
If we have more questions, Achut is in line. Achut, go for it.
Hi, Kunal. Thanks for such a wonderful session. I just wanted to ask you, while because we have a pretty heavy workload and work-life balance tends to be tough, to think about being so active on social media and LinkedIn is such a far-fetched thought, right? But how do you make it such a priority, and how have you gone about strategizing this entire journey?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't do it with ChatGPT as yet. This is all my own work. Although it might change in a few years, not even a few years, few weeks, the pace at which ChatGPT is going along, So, and now I sometimes think that, my goodness, everyone else will start posting because it's so easy with ChatGPT. But on a serious note, I think it's a it's a tough job, and it's a choice you make. Uh, and not everyone, is okay with it. Not everyone wants it. So you have to be. I always say that, decide what makes sense to you. If you feel that this is not your cup of tea, if you don't want to, care about it, you don't have time, you can't make time for it. Just because everyone else is doing it, don't do it. You have to enjoy it. Mega and Aditya said this. I enjoy writing, so for me, it's an outlet. It's a way to take the break from my regular mundane, what I'm doing. It's a way of unleashing a bit of my creativity. So for me, it's like that. And I'm not thinking of a topic every day. If I'm reading on the weekend and I read 3 articles and 2 different ideas come to my mind, I'm not going to do a post on both of them now, but I have an on my phone. I will just put down some points that I want to write on leadership from this angle because I read something and I have a point of view. And then when the time comes, I will go back to my note and say that, what did I pick up, and then build on it. So that's how I do it. Sometimes I have a strong idea and I want to write a post there and then, but the timing is not right because the post for that day has already happened. Thankfully, LinkedIn now allows you to kind of schedule it for a later date, next day or 2 days later. So I also try and do it like that. But those are my ways to do it. And also, I try and keep it ideally one post a day, which I think I like to take the time out for that. So that's how I would. And now I've been doing it for years, so it doesn't take time for me. You can give me any topic and I'll take 10 minutes and write a post on it. I'm my own chat GPT. So
Nice.
that's the way it works for me.
No, I actually motivate people to go check out his LinkedIn page. It's quite interesting. I mean, I've been stalking your page so that I can come up with questions and to know you. Sorry about all
Thank
the
you.
notifications, but yes, people, please do check out his
Yeah.
Page.
And I also
Harsimran has
follow,
a
just to
question.
kind
Yeah.
of close that, sorry, but just, I also am very clear, Truth, and this is something I did maybe a few years back, that what are the topics I want to write on? What are the topics I don't want to write on? So I'm not going to write on manufacturing or supply chain where I don't have that much of a strong point of view or expertise to give. I know my topic, so I definitely will write on marketing. I will write on leadership. I will write on sustainability. I would sometimes do a post on AI or ChatGPT, but I'm not an expert. So I'm giving it, I write a post on that as an observer or a user, but never as a tech expert. So I also have my clear content buckets and I only do post on that. So that also helps because I'm not thinking what I need to write on. I know what I will write on. So maybe that also could help you. Yes, sorry, Aditya, please go ahead.
No, not a problem. So Harsimran's got a question. Harsimran, please go for it.
Hi, Kunal. Really
Hi.
interesting session.
Thank
Really
you.
loved it. So I have a two-part question. One is more on a personal front, and one is on more on a professional front. The professional front would be since you have worked in multiple MNCs and global markets as a leader, also at your current post, how much does a geopolitical issue affect a advertising strategy for a company, and how do you really strategize yourself around those kind of issues? That was on the professional front. On a personal front was more to do with since you said that you like to gather experiences,
Mhm.
how do you gather those experiences and put it forward onto your professional life or your marketing strategies? What do you observe and how do you train yourself in gathering those minute things while you're traveling, while you're exploring places, and then you
Yeah.
say, yeah, I observed this and I liked it, and I think I can utilize this point into my strategy.
Yeah. So let's start with your first, the professional one. That is an important thing in a global role, and I think it touches one of the questions that Aditya also spoke about. How do you decide, based on the cultural nuances? And sitting here in Europe, the Ukraine-Russia issue is a key one for us. So we have to always be thinking about what's going to be our approach to that, right from deciding whether we're going to manufacture within Russia or not, whether we're going to sell to Russia or not, um, whether we're going to do advertising in Russia or not. And I don't want to answer, this is getting recorded either ways. The point I want to make is that therefore you have to make those choices. You have to consider various things, right from the legality of it, the positioning of the company, the presence of the company in some of these places. How do we come across based on whichever decision we take, and how do we come across first to our own employees? So whatever decision we make, how does the employee perceive the company based on the choices that we make? And then secondly, to the external world, whether it's our customers, our stakeholders, our investor community, or media. So I think every decision that we make, which is linked to geopolitical, we consider all these ramifications, all these repercussions, and then decide. It's never sure whether the decision that you're making is the right one, but once you made a decision, then you go for it. And then you put all the support behind in terms of FAQs, in terms of crisis management, in terms of the questions that media could throw in front of you. So that's how we kind of look at it. It's never an easy topic, but you cannot escape it. So you always have to have a point of view on that. That would be my way to answer your first question. Your second question, I don't think I plan like that. I mean, if I start thinking that I'm going for an experience and that will help me in my role, I would actually lose the joy of that experience. I think it happens on its own, just the way it would for all of us in our minds. Serendipity is the best gift sometimes. I might come back from a place, and then when I'm writing something, it might strike me that, oh, I saw this at that place, and I think this is the learning from there. Let's try and put a post around it. I don't plan for that, so I don't have a real answer to give to you. It if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So that would be my thing. I'll tell you one example. It was not an experience, but I was at the Geneva airport a few weeks back, and I was at his duty-free shop, and I saw one machine. Maybe there are more machines. I saw it for the first time, but it was a machine with nail polishes all around it, different shades. And below there was a place where you could put your nails. And depending on which nail polish you chose, on the screen you could see your nail with the color shown on it. So you could make the choice of which nail polish you want to buy. For me, that was new. I had not seen it. I haven't done a post as yet, but it's been on my mind that, oh, this is an interesting marketing idea, and I want to do a post on it. So that would be my thing, that I saw something, I got fascinated by it. I'll come back and do a post on it. That's the way I approach it.
Thank you so much. Really interesting.
Thanks.
We might go a little overboard, but we have one question from Yogesh as well.
Hi,
Yogesh, go
Kunal.
for it.
So I just wanted to ask, with the kind of vast experience you have as a marketing professional for different brands, what are your ways of staying productive during the day or during campaign launch time? And what would be your recommendation for other marketing professionals to stay productive as a professional?
Yeah, I think first of all, the world has changed in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm spending, and I think all of us are spending more time in front of the screen. I don't know about the workings, the ways of working there, but for us, it is a hybrid model. So I don't go to the office all the time, but I have my stakeholders, my team spread out pretty much in different parts of the world, different countries. So I'm a lot more in front of the screen. So I have to constantly remind myself to take regular breaks. On my to-do list, I write it down. Take breaks, drink water. Otherwise, I forget it. So that's something that I try and use to stay productive, because sometimes what happens is that the days can become long, and when I get up after being virtual throughout the day, there is a huge, like, oh my God, why did I not take a break? And the head is kind of spinning. So that's, and I live very close. I'm lucky because I'm living here. So I'm live near the mountains, near the lake. So sometimes in the middle of the day during lunchtime, or when I have some open slot, I try and just go out for a walk. Maybe I'll do one call while walking. So I don't go on a video and I do an audio call. That also refreshes me, keeps me productive, because then I can look at nature and I can feel nice and I'm not looking at a screen. That's another way to do it. I think in the day, if I'm having a coffee or something like that, in the middle I try and go on social media and not think of work and just look at some things on Instagram or whatever, which is again very different from what I'm doing. So these are my ways. And again, I don't think that my answer is going to really give you your answer, because you have to find your own way. I can only give what I do and what works for me, but that's the way I do it.
Nice. I hope we had such ease of access to just step outside and see mountains and lakes. Quite jealous there, but and
Which
also
city are you
Kunal, I
based in?
hope
Yeah.
uh, Bangalore.
Come on, you can't complain. You have enough greenery outside.
Yeah, but obviously Switzerland, I can't compare, like you said. Okay, I hope we are not standing in between your lunch. I just checked, it's 2:30 p.m. there. Uh, we have one more question from Priya, if you're okay.
So talking of Indian versus Western, lunch here is usually 12, so I'm good with lunch, not a problem.
Awesome.
I have kept
Okay.
15 minutes extra, so we can do one or two questions, not a problem.
Awesome. Awesome. Priya, go for it.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Hi, Kunal, and thank you so much
Hi.
for taking the question even after the time is overshot a little bit. You spoke about it a little bit when Aditya asked you the question about the influencer marketing part. So it's sort of related to that. So what do you think of the role of creator marketing or influencer marketing in the B2B world or in the B2B business?
Yeah. Yeah. That, I would look at it a bit differently, because in the B2B world, and again, different industries within B2B may follow a different approach, but let's talk about my industry. The usual influencers that who we tend to think are influencers are not the ones I would do influencer marketing with. But within our industry, we have what we call experts, who we call key opinion leaders. So it could be, scientists, it could be a nutritionist. They may not be your usual influencers from the, the ones who are also showing some fashion products and whatnot. But for me, those are the influencers because they have credibility behind them. People read what they write, people listen to what they say. So the approach is a bit different. It's still influencer marketing, but we call it key opinion leader marketing, and we try and tap into them. We try and get them on board. We try and show them our products and tell them the technical details of that, and then we leave it on them. But if they are convinced, we encourage them to either write a piece for us or do a post for us. So that's how we kind of try and do that, the influencer marketing version. But I would also say that within the organization, the leadership of, and not DSM, generally I'm saying the leadership of a lot of companies, the network that they have, don't discount them. They are strong influencers. Your CEO, your head of marketing, those people have a solid network. And we constantly encourage our CEOs and co-CEOs to kind of be active on LinkedIn and do more posts, because we've seen that in B2B, the trust and the credibility that comes from senior leadership doing a post versus me as a company doing a post is so much different. So I think that's another way of looking at who is that influencer. That's really what the question is.
Right. Thank you so much for that insight, Varun.
Thanks, Priya.
Awesome. But Kunal, I promise this will be the last question. Mega has a question. Mega Jen, not Mega
Okay.
Oja. Okay. Mega Jen has a
Hi.
question.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, Kunal. Thanks for such
Hi.
a lovely session.
Thank you.
Let me just follow it up with Priya's question actually on the influencer. So mine is basically you worked with celebrities, like you were talking about the Munch campaign with Virat Kohli. It's a very Indian mindset to have a celebrity on board to drive the credibility. Is it similar to what you see in other markets as well, or do they want to hear more of real people, real stories, kind of a thing? What is the flavor?
Look, celebrities are celebrities everywhere and important everywhere. If that was not the case, you wouldn't see the kind of businesses that people like Messi, Ronaldo, George Clooney for Nespresso, or any of those people managed to get. I don't think, I think every country, every brand, every marketing person gets excited by a celebrity. My only watch out always is that whatever association you do with a celebrity, it should be helping the brand more than the celebrity. That's the first question you need to ask as a marketer. The second is what I said also, is that the personality of the celebrity should match the personality of the brand. You cannot change the brand personality just because you're bringing a celebrity on board. So I think that's the other important question to ask. And the third thing is that every marketer should, every time you're bringing a celebrity, you're also signing on a paper with some risk, because who knows what can happen. There could be a scandal, there could be some bad behavior. So, and you can put all the clauses on a contract, but the damage that gets done at that moment does get done at that moment. So I think these are the questions to ask, and then decide whether you want to move forward with a celebrity or not, whether it makes sense or not. I don't think it's really about India or another country. Celebrities bring a lot of value, but they also sometimes pull the brand down. So you have to be careful of what choice you make.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
But I think that was it. Kunal, thank you so much. That was one monumental session, and I'm confident that everybody had something to take home from today's session. And again, thank you so much for your time and all the knowledge.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Kunal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to, first of all, both of you, Mega for inviting me, Aditya for hosting this session. But thank you for everyone for your time. I know that there are, brand builders, marketers, media planners, all in this call. So I feel honored to kind of share a bit of my experience here. But I want to say that feel free to connect with me. I'm there on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, not on TikTok. I mean, there's no videos to share there, but you can connect me with me on any of the other three. But I really enjoyed this. But I also feel that I think this is a great idea what you guys are doing, this mentor-mentee session, bringing different perspectives. So I hope that I could bring some interesting insights to everyone.
You
Absolutely.
definitely did, Kunal. So thank you
Thank
so
And this time
much.
it was global. Yeah, I was just saying this time it was global as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks a
Global
lot.
perspective, I meant. Yep. Thank you. Have a great day
Thank
and a
you.
week ahead.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you,
joining
everyone.
in.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.